Hi, I hope you're well. Just buying some 30 seconds. And then I just want to go through something I got earlier on this month for some like 3 to 5 minutes. Kidogo too. Just buying some 30 seconds and then I get into it. So hi, I hope your week is coming along well. I definitely think my day is okay. So a random thing, I read a lot, but I realized I have been reading a lot of other writers, let me say writers who are not African, writers who are not Kenyan. And last year I had a thing, I really wanted to read more Kenyan books. And earlier this year, I think around December, I came across a certain guy. He is called Javan Bwire Umkangala. So Javan Bwire Umkangala is a writer. You should actually follow him on his Facebook page. He is JB Umkangala. And he keeps narrating stories about Makena. Makena is the wife. So he writes daily. Utasikia akisema story how Makena aligombana na mama wa plot. You know, things that you can really relate. How Makena got mad because alitoka washroom na kaenda kulewa kwa siku na wa kwa sink ya kitchen. And I found him to be interesting. So I decided maybe he should be one of the people I should be looking. Like niangalie vitabu zao nionekane za soma. And then I managed to get one of his books. So the book that I got is named The Midnight Sun, and he delivered it himself. Yes, so Javan Bwire delivered the book, and if you can see, so the book is written, my name, my phone number, where he was delivering it at, and then his name, his contact, and everything. So I'll just show you the book. It's an interesting book though. So the book is The Midnight Sun. I think it's clear. It's The Midnight Sun. He delivered this book. So this is The Midnight Sun by JB Omukangala. And he delivered it on 15th of January. But Jaisoma, I was like, maybe I go through it and then I get into it and then I will come and give a book review on it. So let me read first this and then we'll look at the book. So The Midnight Sun is a fascinating account of an ambitious lady named Nasirumbi. She performs well both in primary and secondary schools before joining medical school in Nairobi. Being the only daughter of Mzee Wasike and Mama Amojong, she's determined to be successful and make her parents proud. While at the medical school, she meets a Jackite, a mechanical engineering student who expresses interest in her and later becomes her boyfriend. Unfortunately, a few months into the relationship, a Jackite meets Lucy, a white lady who ensnares him and succeeds in capturing his attention. Lucy's main aim is to acquire Kenyan citizenship by marrying a Kenyan man, and a Jackite is her first and easiest target. So a Jackite ends his relationship with Nasirumbi and marries Lucy. Wow, interesting. Sadly, Nasirumbi left in the lurch and has to go back to her village with a bun in the oven. Her dreams are thwarted. Okay. Her father feels brought down by her and eventually disowns her, forcing her to seek refuge at Ajuma's place, her maternal aunt. She stays with her aunt and gives birth to Alungat under very impoverished conditions. So I think you may realize I am reading very hard names. These are Teso names, really difficult names. She faces sexual harassment from her aunt's husband, an elderly man that initially protested her stay at his home. She also tries several relationships that crumble due to her single motherhood status. Nasirumbi is on the verge of giving up on relationships and becoming a single mother when a jacket resurfaces, asking her to forgive him and reunite with him. This comes 2 years after a jacket and Lucy's breakup. The spellbinding narration ends in a frenzied celebration at an epicete when a jacket and Nasirumbi reunite after 4 years of separation, hence the title, The Midnight Sun. The events in this book take place in the culture-rich Tesoland. Therefore, the story is sufficiently oiled with the Iteso culture, customs, and history. J.B. Omkangala is an author who has great passion for the African culture and observances. His other title is Torn Between. So that is The Midnight Sun by J.B. Omkangala. I think it's something that you can really relate. You know, a girl who comes to campus is in love with someone, but this other person likes another guy who is white, na decide atamuoa, and then you left there as a single mother. I think it's something we can really connect with our day-to-day lives. So I think it's gonna be an interesting read. And then later on they reunite. You know, tulikosana na your father for some 3 years. He went, dated other people, and then he came back and then went back to dating. It kind of sounds like it. So I'm going to read something inside. So J.B. Omkangala wrote me something as he delivered the book, and I'll just read what he wrote inside the book. So he wrote, the book was delivered on 15th and he signed it himself. So he wrote, after talking to the sleepy love of your life at 9:30 p.m, please call them again at 10:49 p.m. Research shows that you're likely to find that number engaged, but the love of your life will be dead asleep. I think it's like a scenario whereby, you see the way, oh yeah, people make jokes about it, how your boyfriend or your girlfriend will tell you, amechoka anataka kulala. It's around 9 o'clock. Amechoka anataka kulala. So you're like, oh, okay, well, good night. And it's a good night. And then you try calling them at 10 and the line is busy. And in your head you're thinking, I thought you said umechoka unalala. I thought you were asleep, but your line is busy. Yeah, definitely the line is busy, but they are fast asleep. That is a good autograph, a good one. So the book was published by African Ink Publishers. Dedication to my kind friend and wife to an Iteso white man, Mrs. Karen Grace Orapidi Omsuguti, to all my sisters, Priscilla, Cestine, Marilyn, and Catherine. And then there is the acknowledgement. I sincerely express my gratitude to Miss Brenda and stuff, a lot of things. So I want to read the first page. Alafu nitawafanyia review nikimaliza the book. So generally, so The Midnight Sun has dedication, acknowledgement, 11 chapters, and it has a place for notes and a glossary. Yeah, and I'll tell you one thing I like, because he is using a lot of things from the Iteso culture. So he has written a glossary such that when you read the book, you might be able to understand what he's talking about. And I think it can be a very good book to be used especially for the high school students, since it's talking more about the Kenyan culture. I think, no, the Iteso people are the kind of, you know, that tribe that you have like 1 or 0 friends. I remember I studied with one Iteso guy in primary. He was called Sweeta Shitanda. I don't remember meeting any Iteso person until I came across J.B. Omkangala. I think it's that one tribe in Kenya. We don't find them as often. Which reminds me, today I saw something. Someone posted. He's called King Ed on Facebook. So King Ed posted it. It was like, no, it wasn't King Ed. It was this other writer, Ndugu Abisai. And he thought it was weird how he rarely meets people called Amundi. And he thinks we only have 7 people called Amundi in this world. And I know 2 of them. I know Edna Amundi. I know Braxton Amundi. It's a rare name. So I think the Teso are also that rare. So I'm just going to read the first page of this book, of the chapter 1. And then I'll come back and give a review once I'm done reading the book. So I'll start first paragraph. To the south of Ebukimba village lay a series of hills running spectacularly from Ebuhulo to Buluenge. Luya names, what? And then stretching all the way to the land of grinding stones. And beyond the land of the grinding stones, in the yonder land of Abanyala, the prominent Sio Port dolled up the rich land in a seamless, shiny pool. Its water strikingly reflected light rays to the hills like a white sheet spread on the ground. While standing on the apex of Ebukimba Hills, you could get a breathtaking view of the port and its environments. It appeared white like a heap of the famous Mulwanda cotton. On the other hand, to the west, the beautiful hills of Abakabi stood firmly, craning their necks in great admiration for the rich valleys and plains of Ebukimba. The hills were unperturbed by the rapidly growing population of Abukabi clan, who consistently braid their rocks into ballast for sale every morning. The same way moths gnawed tubers from underground in a potato plantation without the vines detecting the injustices being knitted on them. To the east and northeast, behind the quiet and serene hills of Ebukimba, into which natural beehives thrived, stood the Bwiranyi Hills, directly facing the giant Abakomolo Hills with the envy of the untamed cowards in a standoff. Between the two sides ran two long streams, Madele and Konyabele. Konyabele stream cascaded through the ridges near the foot of Abakomolo Hills, while Madele was on the side of Bwiranyi Hills. Every time I read about streams between hills, the first thing that comes across my mind is the river between. For those people who did the river between as a set book in campus, yeah. We had Makuyu and Kameno Hills, and then we had a river flowing. I've forgotten the name of the river, but that's the set book that I did. So, water in both streams was clear and clean and numbing throughout the year. Young boys watered their parents' animals in the streams and also bathed and swam in them every morning after school. Even though fishing didn't thrive so much along these streams, you wouldn't miss a fisherman or two carrying hooks and worms enfolded in a fresh banana leaf every afternoon. It was very unlikely to hear a serious fisherman lament about eating green vegetables, which were bounteous in the ridges the whole week. It was widely rumored that waters in the two streams came from leakages from the bottom of Port Victoria, while others argued that it came from underground. Nobody knew the truth, but the truth was not so useful provided the water was tax-free, I know, right? Both streams flowed through the valley and joined at River Sio, into which they poured. Then all the hills were wonderfully covered with grass and indigenous trees such as Emilaya, Ebilando, Michuta, Emipobo, Emibwa, and Emikachikia Enjofu, whose leaves were edible. The names in this book. Wild animals lushly wandered from hill to hill without fear. Birds such as Emilie, Binanduka, Amaherete, Esindu, and Amahanga twittered and called one another in the hills cheerfully. They made nests, laid eggs, and hatched them. More often than not, these wonderful hills were blanketed with enangongo, mist, and fog in the morning. Children would stand on the foot of the hills or in plains and stare at the fog with great elation, saying, "Our ancestors who live in hills are now cooking." They said the same when they saw water vapor in form of light smoke emanating from the ground after it rained in the afternoons. The enangongo often disappeared in the mid-morning sun, giving the hills an adorable palliation. Then the giant stones ecstatically standing on each other could clearly be seen on the apex of the hills, whereas their young ones scattered on the slopes were hardly visible from afar. One thing I think I've noted, starting from the first page, the description. The description is very vivid. You can actually create an image in your head. That's good writing. The green leafy branches of Emidongodongo and Emirembe stretched their arms to wave at the people of the ridges as the thick elephant grass nodded triumphantly. The hills were beauteous and peaceful, though every evening, an antelope or two were often heard snorting from the hills. Elders always associated the snorting of antelopes in the hills with the absence of dangerous wild animals such as lions and leopards. In every homestead, weaverbirds had their nests built all over, and you would hear them twitter and chirp every morning to welcome a new day. They would still do it all day long, dropping their feathers and flapping their wings while fetching elephant grass to build nests. There was always hope for tomorrow for both the birds and human beings and all living organisms. A sinyange breezed from livestock to livestock, competitively picking ticks from them and grass. Children of the ridges often told their playmates, "I have given you that cattle egrets. Now you owe me 7 egrets." They also composed a song which they sang with furor as they flailed their arms in the air to ask the cattle egrets to give them the stunning white color. On some days, boys disappeared into the bushes for hours, only to resurface with dozens of amasefu, eninga, amachokore, and all sorts of birds that were edible. For the Abakimba clan in Ebukimba, traditions barred anyone from eating adiedo and akandiede. Adiedo was not eaten because it was believed to be the laziest bird on earth. A big bird that could easily be beaten to death by small birds such as akasongonyola and akiandibikiri. Murimba was also not eaten, especially by young boys and girls, because it made them sleepy in wrong places, such as in classrooms or while in the field herding. Abu Habi didn't eat monkeys or anything on which a monkey put its teeth. It was believed that Abu Habi evolved from monkeys, so they had to accord them the respect they deserved as their ancestors. For Abasubo, it was a taboo for them to consume meat from Mbongo, the antelopes. Young men from all the clans were taught according to their beliefs, traditions, and culture, and they conformed. They went through all rigorous steps of rightful upbringing under strict supervision of the community. When they had successfully blossomed and were ready to take part in the lasting role of continuity of their clans, their parents held their hands and took them through the process. In those old days of cherished concerted responsibilities, planting seasons never changed. Esirumbi and Oroiso came in September and March, respectively. Rain patterns, durations, and intensity were consistent and easily predictable. During Erotso, heavy and long rains were experienced in the ridges. It's also this time that mushrooms proliferated in the villages, including the mushrooms of snake that were not edible. Boys woke up early in the morning to go and hunt for the most common yellowish mushrooms in the bush and plantations. There was also Nahasokhere, the small edible mushrooms that resembled poisonous mushrooms of snakes. I think in Kisi we call them amandegere. Yes, I think that one I know. Women of the ridges, in collaboration with their daughters, gathered the mushrooms and dissipated them in the sun, mostly on Olonda, rocky ground to dry. Sour milk fermented in gourds was added to the dry mushroom during cooking in preparation of toothsome stew. The Esirumbi was followed by Christmas celebrations. Onset of Christmas season was always announced by arrival of thousands of amakuyi, the large blackbirds that flocked together. Their arrival in the hills insensately brought all activities to a standstill as children abandoned their duties assigned to them and lined up to welcome amakuyi while singing. It was just before such celebrations that a middle-aged couple, Mzee Andrea Wasike and Mrs. Demutula Amojong Wesike, begot their first daughter after a chain of sons. You know, it's so interesting how in our culture we have always considered boy children to be more, what do I say? They are more esteemed in the society as compared to getting a girl child. Anyway, they named their precious jewel Cynthia Nyasirumbi. So Cynthia Nyasirumbi is the daughter to Andrea Wasike and Mrs. Demutula Amojong. They named their precious jewel Cynthia Nyasirumbi. Nyasirumbi being one of her aunties who was not only smart but also hardworking and strict during her teenage. No boy dared her without adequate preparations, because if wooing her didn't result into a fight, the bitter words exchanged in the process were torturous as much. Such an interesting lady. So, no, but this is interesting. She was smart, she was hardworking, and very strict during her teenage. Kumkatia bala. So, Nasirumbi had turned down and embarrassed many of her suitors before Bernardo Nakoli of Abukulo clan captured her soul. Even so, Nakoli didn't have an easy time. It was a battle of its own kind. It took interventions of parents from both sides for her to accept to get married. I think I really like the Nasirumbi woman, who Cynthia Nasirumbi is named after. Mzee Wasike wished day and night that his only daughter, Mwabini, as he referred to her, would grow up to be like her aunt. Ah, okay. That would have made him very proud. If she did, maybe, just maybe, he could sweet talk Mama Amojong to throw the dice once up in the air and see if they could get another daughter. Nonetheless, there was less bouquet placed on daughters, but having a few of them felt good and assured parents of more wealth. You see, I said it. They had a preference for male children as compared to female children. Nasirumbi grew into a tough and principled girl. I've heard something being said in the past about the power of a name. You see, the way you name a child after someone, there's a very big likelihood they can really pick up the character of the person you've named the child after. And they can be like that particular person. You know, it's always a thing that you're always advised as you're giving your child a name, be very careful. What kind of character do you want them to emulate? If you give them a character, a name, maybe the person was a thief, was not honest. There's power in a name. There's power in a name. There's power in a name. So whatever you call your child really goes a long way. So this girl is named after her aunt. Her aunt was really hardworking, very strict, very smart. And then she turns out to be very tough and principled as well. You see, I think it really brings out the fact of the power of names, how we name our children. So let me just finish that last paragraph. Nasirumbi grew into a tough and principled girl. In both primary and secondary schools, she was said to be hardworking, disciplined, and enthusiastic about life. Her passion for music and dance saw her compose nice natural songs during music festivals that made her secondary school, Tunawiri Girls High School, well known in the region. Lamentably, by the time Nasirumbi had proved to be an exact replica of her aunt, Mzee Andrea had already grown too weary to throw himself in the hustle of looking for another daughter. He believed his sons would pick up from where he had stopped. So that's the end of chapter 1. So chapter 2, that one I'll do the reading on my own. But this is The Midnight Sun by J.B. Omokangala. So let me show you something that really intrigued me with this book. The cover page. So the cover page, we have, trying to put it at an angle, there is a lady, really dark. I think I have a crazy fetish for dark ladies. really dark, carrying a daughter, dressed in African attires. I think it's all African. It is all African. You can really relate with it. And when you look at the background, you can sort of see the hills that are being described in the book. So the Ebukabi clan and stuff, where they come from. And the colors. Very interesting colors are used for this book. So this is The Midnight Sun by J.B. Omukangala. He sells the book at Others and Bob. And he has another one called Torn Apart at Others and Bob. And he has also written with some other Kenyan writers another book called, is it Veiled? It is Veiled. Yeah. So J.B. Mukangala, sorry, I just want to pick something here. J.B. Mukangala is on Facebook, and that is his name. He is Javan Bwire Omukangala. On Facebook, his page is j.b.omukangala. Very interesting stories. Like, you should really read his write-ups and his funny stories about Makena. He's a Cheso guy who has married a Meru lady, and he narrates a lot of things about Makena daily on his posts. And he has books that he's selling at Others and Bob. And his number is on his page. So unaweza hapo. Or rather, he wrote his number on the envelope yenye alitumia ku deliver the book. 0778287564. Yeah. So one thing that I just found out, we have really good Kenyan books out here. We actually have a lot of good Kenyan content. So I think before the year started, I was watching the film 40 Thieves on Netflix. Kenyan film is just on another level. And if you've also watched Disconnect, Kate actress outdid herself, Brenda Wairimu, some really good work. So there's a book by J.B. Mukangala, The Midnight Sun. Maybe you should try get it. But kaujashika jina, you can just inbox me alafu nitakwambia the name of the book, and I can give you the contacts to this guy Javan Bwire, and you can just read the book. So I'll read the book and then I'll do a review once I'm done. Now that this is the next book I am reading, this is my second book in January. I make an effort of trying to read a book a month, but at least this time nimeanza second book bado tukiwa in January. So I think by the end of the year I might have read more than 15 books. Yes, I do a lot of reading. And tomorrow we are getting back into writing on the other page, the Spoken Heart page. So tomorrow morning I have a post coming up. I think I have been having a lot going on. I've not been writing in a while. So yeah, you can also check out for that. And I really hope that your week ends well. What else? Yeah, I really hope your week ends well, because to midweek already. Tomorrow is Thursday, the other day is on Friday, and people are taking a break from work, but I hope that things go well with you. So yeah, I have something to keep me busy for the weekend. I'll let you know what the story is about once I'm done. And that's it from me. So have yourselves a good night.